And good evening, and welcome to another edition of Life is People. It's very honoured again to be catching up with Jen because we had a sort of brief conversation recently, but it was kind of broken up, and it was nature of Life is People. It was just a very intermittent conversation. But before I go any further, we were just reflecting then, Jen, about the difference between, well, the similarities between Scotland and Colorado. But you know, before we go any further, how are you anyway?
I am wonderful. I feel like I'm on top of the world. The view from my writing desk is the backside of Pikes Peak. And kind of what like we were talking uh, before we before we started, the reflection that made it so that you couldn't see the proper button is the same reflection that is shining so brightly on me, even through the curtains, that I feel like I'm illuminated apparently. But it's the same sun on me, same sun on you. Mine's, it's facing me and it's behind you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one of the things that we were just discussing before we went live was the similarities between my part of the world. I live in Scotland and Colorado, and how I've seen that kind of reflected around the world. Now, one of the things that I particularly, it's one of the things that kind of almost pulled me over my lifetime to sort of live where I am living currently now, was the pull of the mountains and water. There's something very deep inside my soul about the connection between mountains and water, and I know that's reflected where you are. What was your kind of call, or what do you think? If I was to say to you, what would you say is the reason that you base yourself in Colorado? Is it the same sort of thing? Is it the mountains and the water, or is there other particular things about Colorado that have had that pull for you to sort of write and and do what you do?
I believe I was drawn to make my home and reset my roots in Colorado based on something that Hunter Thompson called the Great Magnet. I don't necessarily know what it means, but I believe it. I feel like I'm just closer to the source. I grew up in Kansas, which is entirely flat, although it's only one state over. Right now, they've got humidity and heat and overpopulation and all kinds of stuff happening there. And we have that in Colorado too, but it's in more it's in tighter areas. Denver, or I mean, Denver's got a lot of people in it, but I'm up here by Pikes Peak and I'm on the backside of it. And, there's no fast food places. There's no, um, I just feel like I'm closer to the source. Whatever that source is, I am more inspired right now than I've been at lower elevations.
I
Maybe it's just the elevation. I don't know.
I can completely concur with that, Jill. I mean, it's that phrase, what, the spirit never sleeps. The creativity within never sleeps. And I don't know, we could get kind of metaphysical here, but I kind of think that the spirit of creativity dwells more away from people, cities, and in, like I say, hills and mountains and trees and nature itself. That's, like I said, it's metaphysical, but I think that's where the spirit of creativity dwells. That's my personal thought. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, I've just recently spent more than a year managing we'll call it a bargain motel in Durango, Colorado, which is, a tourist town. Um, I left that job finally. I mean, I broke free. It was tough. Um, and I got here, so I didn't know what I was going to do. I was both living on the property and managing the property. So my work was my home, was my work was my home, which was a part of the burnout. And and so when I decided to quit my job, I also immediately lost my place to live. And this job had been taking away from my ability to be creative for quite some time. I mean, we're talking two dead bodies in 3 months. Well, I'm gonna go. It was tough. But anyway, I guess just on some sort of faith alone, I knew it was going to be okay. you know, I didn't know where I was going to go. I didn't know how I was going to pay for it. Things worked out, lined up. I found myself, so basically, I rented an Airbnb camper in the mountains for a month for me and my dog. And I decided, and I put everything in storage, and I decided that I was going to finish the book here. And I'm probably going to Kerouac the shit out of it, because I have a team of people who are helping me, and I have proofreader, and I have an editor, and I have it's not just me, but it is just me and the dog here in the mountains wrapping the thing up. So anyway, it was an Airbnb. There are like 3 campers and a couple of houses, but I'm on 100 acres out in the country, and there's a pond with a canoe, and there's free range cows, and my dog is a hound dog, and I've had him basically I mean, it was a motel, but it was like I had an apartment, behind the office of the motel. And so this hound dog has been trapped in an apartment for quite some time. And so to get him out here and to get me out here and just, let go of the stress, and this morning before I went live with you, or before I came on here with you, the people that I'm renting from, who I'm now on a month-to-month lease with, because I'm going to stay. As long as I can afford it, I'm going to stay. I feel closer to who I am as a person here. And I've been working my ass off, but here's where I give birth to the thing. And this morning before we started this call, uh, they invited me to a ceremony during the next full moon, which I guess is a super moon and maybe the last one of the year. And then they said, they said that I was part of their tribe, and that's how I landed here. And they cheer me on. They don't bother me. They want me to write this thing as much as I want to finish this thing. And these are strangers that I met by renting an Airbnb camper, and I just happened to land in the most beautiful and inspiring place I possibly could have. And here I had no plan. I was scared shitless when I took the steps that got me here. And my dog is happier than I've ever seen him. I'm happier than I remember being. And I'm writing like I haven't written in years. And I'm safe and I'm comfortable. I have just enough, but not so much as to relax. I can't fully relax, but when I am done, I might sleep for a month, but it'll be in this camper.
I think what's fascinating about what you just said there, Jen. I think it's something I mentioned quite a few times when we're discussing things. It's like us creative people, we don't tend to look back a lot. We're always on the on the march forward. We're always next one. So when you do sort of step back, and I'll be fascinated again to have this conversation with you in a few years' time, you'll almost look back and go, those strangers that you're talking about, they were always there. It was, for want of a better word, just destiny to meet. And then you meet them and you think, wow, we've known each other for lifetimes, and that's the nature of life.
And those people usually happen to me and me to them, because it is reciprocal. Earlier I said, thank you for happening in my life, and I'm happy to be a part of yours. And their response basically was like, well, it's all the same thing, but yeah, we got you, kid. And it seems like when these people happen, it's just after I've almost lost faith in humanity again. It's just, it's like when it gets as bad as it can get, then these people will pop up out of nowhere, and they're like, no, it's okay, there are good people left. And we can even acknowledge it, as crazy as it is. The universe is a beautiful thing, even when she's mad.
Yeah. Well, it's again, you just mentioned those words, and you mentioned crazy years, and that's the sort of something we were discussing before. And I'm going to put up a something that I think I worked out probably about 6-7 years ago that this came about. It's basically a tundra track with some new words spoken over the top of it, and that was on the theme back then. As crazy as this crazy does. So, my sort of question, I'll play the clip now.
start this journey?
Well, I'm a situational sort of entrepreneur. I guess there are entrepreneurs that have loads and loads of money lying around and they don't know what to do with it. I cannot give up on my writing again and try. If you look at my photo there, it's an awning, and I don't think that picture that you see on this podcast represents me at all. But I will tell you that for 3 months I sold retractable awnings, and that's what I was doing to try. And even though my calling is clearly journalism, it's clearly writing, it's creative, I cannot ignore it anymore. So in a lot of ways I'm overcoming so many fears because there are so many people who sometimes I'm finding have no idea what they're talking about, telling me how I'm supposed to be thinking. And I've been kind of conditioned to ignore that truth that I do have inside me for whatever reason. And it can be labeled, different words can be used, it can be labeled as different sorts of mental illness. I mean, it's dangerous in any number of ways to be a creative person in this world. And so I think that's one reason why I'm driven to do it anyway. But I think if you can hear the fear in my voice, I know that there's still a lot, and I know that's going to get better. But I don't want it to turn into like you just said, me having any of the answers. I don't think I was driven to do this, or I've gotten this far because I have so many answers, and other people need to know what I think. I don't think that's my calling at all. But I have to make a living at this because I'm tired of poverty. The goal for this 13-week tour is to stay in a hotel, nice, not nice, I don't care, just a hotel, and then record a podcast every Monday. And if that doesn't work out, then I'm working on a backup plan of a camper that I will live in for that 13 weeks. Most people who aren't lunatics don't tour Colorado in the wintertime. I figure why not? It's probably better to do it. I like going to Aspen in August as opposed to at the height of ski season. There are just, a different sort of Aspen that turns me on. Same place, I just prefer to go off season. All due respect to everyone who will spend every dime that they have to get there at the right time. I'm just going on instinct, like I said. So every episode, which is every week, is also every chapter. And that chapter is going to be built into a product, a book called Crazy As Crazy Does. And I have no idea what I'm doing, but it's evolved to this point without me being in actual control. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to meet deadlines and do what I need to do to make this successful. I assume that everybody who's creative is some sort of lunatic. It just makes sense in my brain, and so I've just kind of conceded to that. And okay, I'm a lunatic, but really, if I use that inner gut, the truth is that only a lunatic writes alone. So not only can it be done, but there are so many people out there, and I don't care if those people are in California, Colorado, South Korea, Scotland, whatever. And it's not just, we're the same in so many ways, but we get so caught up in these fights, and I don't think enough people are asking why, just like what you said. And so that's what I'm supposed to do. It's what I'm here to do. I'm just a scribe. It's just that simple. It is my calling, and I don't have the right education, and I don't have a degree, and I don't think I've necessarily lived wrong. People do funny things when they're very hungry. I made a joke about the hungry writer game, and it fits, and those little jokes that, I say things like that out loud, and I really feel like a simple statement can touch. What do people think of when they think of the hungry writer game? But it's life, and that's the way I'm living it right now. And rather than be ashamed of it, or and maybe it's a hustle that I have the ability to put together a podcast and a book and get a paid job with magazines. How dare I do such a thing with no degree at all? Maybe that's true, and maybe it's not, but I can't stop it at this point. It has to live.
I love to reflect. Do you feel you've learned from that? I mean, you sort of must, again, to step back and think, okay, that was a few years ago when I was doing Crazy as This Crazy Does, and now we are in 2022. What's your thoughts on it?
Well, I'm going right back into Crazy as This Crazy Does. I'm squeezing out the crime book during the vortex of Crazy as This Crazy Does. And then I just don't know. I have to make some changes because if we're going to blame crazy for things, like if, for instance, in the crime book, one of the defendants is pleading not guilty by reason of insanity. Now, she claims that she's crazy and she's trying to prove it, and the state is trying to prove that she's not. She's trying to use it as an excuse for the murder of an 11-year-old boy. Now, crazy for me has been where creativity comes from, where good sex comes from, in the past. Not that kind of girl anymore. But anyway, to me, crazy is a beautiful thing. And can it go dark? Yes. But for Letitia, okay, now Letitia also made up a fake story about how she had been sexually assaulted in her basement. Now, there are real and true victims of sexual assault out there. And here she is using the story, portraying herself as part of that tribe, the victims of sexual assault, when she's really trying to avoid being found guilty, whether that's in actual court or in the court of public opinion, for murder of a child that he was in her care and custody. And she was his stepmother. Anyhow, one of the chapters about her is called now Crazy as This Crazy Does. But it is my intention to pull that back out, because she's faking. She's, and at the same time, I'm not saying that she's not crazy, because at the end of it, what sort of lunatic would feign lunacy? At the end of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, McMurphy was lobotomized. How far does she really want to take this? I don't know, but my current belief that it is her intention to never go to trial at all, be locked up in a civil commitment at the state mental hospital, so that she never goes to trial, and then she will officially and technically, and she's real manipulative, so officially and technically are important to this woman. She will technically die an innocent woman, because in the United States, you are innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. Anyway, I'm going to take the crazy back from her, because I do believe that she's faking it. Now, I'm not a crime fighter, I'm a crime writer, so it's going to be, it's going to be as good as I can make it. But anyway, so she's going to get the Crazy as This Crazy Does chapter. Now, I don't know if I'm going to name the crazy book still. The original plan was for it to be my second published book, and that would be Crazy as This Crazy Does. But I also have this cover that Raldo's already designed for something called One Crazy Stoner, and I already own crazystoner.com.
Nice.
I just, the domain, it's not hosted or anything. For that matter, I own johnnydeppsfinger.com. I don't know. Please, no follow-up questions on that one today.
No. Jen, before we I think one of the things that you just sort of briefly sort of skirted upon is something that we've been discussing between ourselves, and you dropped a really, as you often do, it's one of the things I love you so much, and I love our conversations. You dropped the question the other day, and you said to me, what is the physical form of evil, nature of evil? And I think what you just reflected on there, what you're just speaking about, that Crazy as Crazy Does, is to me, it's something I've been obviously contemplating since you sort of discussed it. And I think that's one of the forms of the physical form of nature of evil, is the very fact that they will invert things. Like you say, that the person will try to steal the clothes or the skin of something that's that pulls at the opposite. I mean, the opposite of evil is goodness. And to any good person, you feel, wow, if you've been a victim of some horrific abuse or something, it pulls at everybody's good heartstrings. So I think one of the natures and the physical that comes out is they do invert things. We saw this a lot through the pandemic. A lot of the inversions, a lot of things. And I think it's like you saw in, another perfect example of that on a very much larger scale. I've just been finishing reading a novel series on, well, 3 sort of biographies on Stalin, and there was a guy, very ordinary. If you met him day to day, he was a very ordinary guy, very articulate, wanted to do things. He had certain routines and stuff. Yeah, he had a limp. You would have walked past him and thought, it's just a weak old man. But then the evil that he portrayed, and again, it was that inversion. He was trying to, it was never his fault. It was always, I'm the victim. I'm the victim. And these are some of the traits I think come out, which again, on the very question you asked me, what is the physical form of that evil? I think that's how you start. It seeps itself out as much as goodness seeps itself out. It just can't help but seep itself out. What are your thoughts?
Well, and that was not an original question on my part. Once again, that question, what is the physical nature of evil, was inspired by a voicemail that was left on Ralph Steadman's answering machine by Hunter Thompson. And he would often call at random hours and leave delusional, if not entertaining, messages for Ralph to get when he woke up. And in one of those messages, he says, he has this, it was a breakthrough idea, and he says, we're either gonna kick ass or get our asses kicked, something along those lines. And then he says, what is the physical nature of evil? And what he was doing is he was writing something, and he wanted to leave this crazed message for Ralph, so that Ralph could try and catch up with him wherever he was the night before. And then then they would work together to try and illustrate the thing. And the love between a writer and an illustrator, although sometimes quite dysfunctional, is an amazing thing. So in one of the many documentaries that I studied about Hunter Thompson, after he was gone, that was most of my education. But in one of those documentaries, it played the voicemail that he had left for Steadman, but they played it out of context, where the person writing the documentary did not explain what Hunter was writing at the time that he was trying to inspire Steadman with, what is the physical nature of evil? And over the years, I have asked people who I respect that question, and their answers over the years have been really interesting. And so far, I mesh most with my friend Dave's answer, and his answer was kinetic energy. What is the physical nature of evil? And he answered kinetic energy, and that might be it. So does crazy make you consider harming someone, or does crazy make you actually take the physical steps of harming someone? Not that you can't harm someone with words, but you know what I mean. We're talking murder cases.
Well, just on that, Jen, just before we go any further, I just want to put a pinpoint on that one. I've often considered that that basically, like I said there, it's always manifest. There's the evil and the goodness, and I think it's as the nature of human beings to fight off the evil. I don't think we're born these pure angels, and that we're corrupted by the world we live in. I think we're born into this, and we're fighting it off all the time, and that's how you can almost step up the goodness level, or the pure love level. But it's a fight that because you said at times, even me and you, we're very much loving people, and we're very much of that type. But times, I have despair, and I get absolutely humanity drives me nuts. So it's that constant battle against it.
Well, so here's what I'm going to do. So I have been in this camper in the mountains with these amazing, beautiful strangers, and cows and dogs, and 5 goats and 3 Great Pyrenees dogs, which make me feel like I'm in Alice in Wonderland. There's also koi fish. They're building a koi pond, and we're building flower beds out of trees that have fallen. This place is otherworldly. I've been here for a month, only having left one time, but I think that as soon as I get off of this call with you, I'm going to find a way into town, and I'm going to find my nearest pool hall, because you know me. Speaking of, geometry and physics, right? I'm ready for some games of pool in a mountain town with strangers. and it's going to be a beautiful, amazing afternoon, and I can't wait to see what comes out of me creatively tonight. And it's so good to see your face, and it's so good to let you see mine. You know, I don't do that.
See, no, Jen, this is exactly these are these sort of this reflection on these are the things that deflect away from the evil of the world. It's enjoying the company. It's enjoying I mean, I was thinking about this the other day that, you know, we've known each other for what, 8 years, and we've yet to meet in person. You know what I mean? But we've connected on another level, and these are things that I always say to people, particularly creative people. And I know that maybe creative people listen to this when it goes out live more than a lot of people, and we do have that despair at times. We watch, you know, quite rightly so, we want to retreat into nature because we find it inspiring, which you just said. And equally, we just find the world at large at times, you know, quite a complex place that we want to run away from. But equally, it's good to just have those connections. Just, like I say, go and have a game of pool, and that's where the goodness rises in the world. And I've always thought that, you know, it's one of the things I say, you know, love over fear every time, it conquer it every time, you know. And it's the small things, it's the moments that they're the beautiful things that do, you know, make this world a better place, particularly in the world that you know, you're particularly always writing about crimes and stuff like that. Now, again, time is running short. One of the things I really wanted to talk to you about was I noticed you're putting up a live Crime Curious. So sort of tell me the sort of what are you hoping for that? Where you know, what can we expect? Hello, Kilo.
Kilo's joining in. Okay, so I'm doing something called Wiretap Tuesday. It's every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Mountain. And basically what I'm doing, I mean, there's not a high production value. I really don't know what I'm doing. I'm winging it. But the purpose of it is for me to do these final interviews that I need to do in wrapping up the crime book. And so Wiretap Tuesday, the idea is that I'm basically tapping my own phone while gathering intelligence on the book project. So what I've learned, because I've been trying to do it the last 2 Tuesdays, and both times my guests had to cancel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a bucket 2 pre-recorded, whatever you want to call them, episodes or whatever you want to call them, so that I still have something going live every Tuesday at that time. But basically, I'm just calling these people. I'm not writing a book. Most people who write crime books, you know, they're somehow entangled or a part of, you know, law enforcement, or and I'm not. I'm not writing this book because I have all these answers. It's because I have so many questions, and I have the ability to reach out to people and get them to help me find those answers. Because, you know, there are a lot of people out there who care very much about their vocation or former vocation if they're retired. And they're willing to share. They're willing to educate however they can on things that they've dedicated their lives to, which also goes that goes for criminals as well. So the next 2 people that I have scheduled, I've got 2 private detectives that have been working with me for years. One is a former special agent for the FBI, and he's done everything from investigating art crimes to being an observer / sniper with the SWAT team. You know, his experience just baffles the mind. But now he's a private investigator in the state of Colorado, and he's linked my website to his. He's answered every question I've ever asked him, and he's asked for nothing in return. He's worked with a couple other writers before, and his insight is invaluable. And then also Dan Corsentino, who is also a private investigator, but he was sheriff of Pueblo County for 17 years. So another law enforcement background on a state or local, you know, municipal level, compared to the federal agent. But they're both active private investigators, and they're working with me because they too believe in the project. And then I have a couple of criminal defense attorneys that allow me to ask them questions. So basically, I'm just calling these people who I already have an established relationship with, and I'm recording it just like our conversation here, only I'm using StreamYard instead of Zoom. and then also Kelly and Amber. So when I write about Chris Watts, which was a huge case in Colorado, there's only 2 chapters about that case, and one is about the case itself and him making 3 separate false confessions and just being locked up for the rest of his life, and we'll probably never know the truth. The second chapter about that case is all about social media and the people who followed the case. And, it didn't matter that there was a Netflix documentary and a show on Lifetime and all these other, people covered it a lot. I think they were on Dr. Phil. People dug in with independent coverage of that case. And so this is where I get to talk about the value of independence, because no matter what I'm working on, whether it's a crime book with heavy dark details or a book being, a crazy stoner who's inspired and creative, no matter what, I'm writing about freedom and discretion. So whether that's people who are incarcerated for horrific crimes or people who are squeezing out books and music and films, and anyway, independence, and that's why there are going to be independent projects even if it fucking kills me. Right now I'm every day is a financial crisis, but it's worked so far and I just keep putting it together. And so I need to get to a point sooner rather than later, which is why I'm going to Kerouac the shit out of it and get it in the hands of friends, so that we can get there sooner and I can afford to maintain my camper in the mountains lifestyle.
Perfect. Well, Jeb, as we're about to hit the final sort of, I can see the clock ticking. I want to thank you for the time. I think perfectly, as you said at the beginning of this conversation, we share the same sun, we share the same moon, we share the same planet. But before I do leave, I want to thank you for giving me time, and I'll leave you with a final word.
Well, all I can think is crazy is as crazy does. I mean, that was the first thing that came to mind. It's really good to see you.
Beautiful. Well, with that, I say life is people.
Well, they say that life is people and that people are angels and that angels are devils and the devils are me and you.